Good evening, all. On the agenda, and I apologize, this agenda has been a document all week. We are meeting with a joint meeting with the Highway Superintendent Screening Committee. This is the first thing on the agenda, so I'll give it to you as
Sure. So we're here to interview the final 3 candidates for the position of Highway Superintendent. We have with us the entire committee. In the front row, Ed and myself, and missing is Joe Slattery. The board received last week the 3 resumes as well as the screening committee report that the screening committee put together. We had 11 applicants and selected 6, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but those 6 were unanimous decisions. One was not able to interview with us because he was deployed in Afghanistan. So we interviewed 5, and we chose these 3. Although I'm not sure the committee has a clear answer, not clear, what's the word I'm looking for? Unanimous decision on who would be the best fit. I think we all agree that we have the 3 candidates who would fit the position best. Anybody want to chime in? Does the board want us to talk about? Go ahead, Nilda.
Well, I didn't see the final report because I had made some suggestions. I don't know if they were incorporated.
They were incorporated.
Oh, okay. I just got the email, like everybody else, that it was released to the select board. And I have a question regarding process. Are we in this forum allowed to bring up some points of how the committee arrived, or?
I think that the first 15 minutes before we interview is a chance for the committee to give the select board any and all information they think would be relevant in making a correct decision.
Okay. And one of the questions I asked at our meeting was whether the board, the select board, was going to ask us whether we had a ranking order. And I was told that in the past that had been done, but this is in an executive session. So how does that affect?
I think what we said is that we didn't give the board a ranking. We didn't give the board a ranking order, and the board has never.
No, not to the select board. That we would be asked, as they have been asked in the past.
I'm not sure that the select board has ever asked for them to be ranked.
I recall it was done in open session.
Yes.
Okay.
Fire department, I think clearly we ranked, or we asked for it.
Yes, but it was an open session.
Right.
Okay, so then,
Yeah. Am I missing any pertinent information at the moment?
Well, and I don't think town administrator we did for whatever reason.
They were listed in alphabetical order and presented to the board.
Fire, we did. I know, I clearly remember that. And the town administrator, I don't remember the first go-round on the town administrator, but the last one we did not, I don't think. I don't have a memory of that.
Yeah, I think we did.
Did we?
Yeah. But again, an open session.
Yeah, at this point in time, it's my understanding it has to be an open session.
Yeah.
So I guess please, Joe.
Joe.
Seeing that Ed and I were both on that committee, is there any questions that you would like to ask Mr. Phelan of us that maybe can help you give us some insight into who we have coming?
No, I mean, I don't have any questions of the committee. I think of at this point in time, I mean, we charged you to review the candidates and come up with a final list of 3, which from the report, I assume we have done. And I apologize, I asked Reggie to go get me a copy of the report because I left mine at home with all the grabbing. Well, she's going to make a copy. With all grabbing everything I did, the one thing I left was right on the counter. So maybe the thing to do at this point in time is, even the lone select person who wasn't a part of the committee, is to ask the public if they have any comments on that issue.
on the issue of one?
On any issue about,
okay.
on the selection committee.
So I guess I can update the public that's in here that may have seen the report or any of the applicants. Can I say their names and just give it to
Yeah, they're public record now.
Okay, so we have William Frizey, who's a resident of Southampton. He currently works for
Dan O'Connell.
Dan O'Connell and Sons. So he has a degree in civil engineering from the University of Massachusetts. He's a partner with his own business in Shrewsbury, which is an outfitting design company. They design and produce and market upgrade kits for high-performance vehicles. I'm trying to go through quickly, so if somebody hears me miss something, please let me know. He's currently serving as the head engineer and head site safety officer on a project at Vassar College in upstate New York with this company. We all thought he would do very well in this job. We have Randall Kemp, who's also a resident of Southampton, holds a bachelor degree in environmental science and urban planning from Westfield State University. He currently works for the highway department. He has helped with budget. He has pretty much had his hands in a little bit of everything. And we also have Henry Seidel, who has worked for the Holyoke Water Department for the last 30 years. He has a bachelor's degree in food and natural resources. And he pretty much is in charge of all things water in Holyoke. I can say that I think the board has some strong opinions in a couple different directions and that there's not a clear consensus, but overall, any one of these three would do justice to this position.
What's Randall Kemp's title? What's his?
He's a truck driver, equipment operator.
If there's no questions from folks, we'll bring them in
Yep.
and start.
Start.
So our first applicant tonight will be Henry Seidel.
He's here?
Yep, he should be in the room. Hmm?
Is he in the room?
No, he's in the
Do you
hall.
want me to go get him?
Ready?
Oh, Reggie's in there. And just different, I asked that we have the applicant sit on the side and the committee in the front.
Is that going to work on the TV screen?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
should
I thought she was turning those mics off for me.
Hi.
Mr. Seidel, why don't you come on up and some of us you've met and myself you haven't.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm Mike Phelan, and somewhere in our deep, dark background, our parents we've crossed Homestead Avenue and Lower Westfield Road in Holyoke. Not a white community.
Hey, how you doing?
Is this where it's at?
Yep, right over there.
This is worse than the first.
Mike, I gave you a list.
And I'm Lower Westfield Road.
I gave you a question.
Wait till you get the bright side of
You're on TV now. Start.
How are you?
Nervous.
Don't be nervous.
I know you told me that the last time.
No need to be nervous. So the way this kind of works is the Board of Selectmen is going to ask you some questions to kind of get an idea and feel.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll open the discussion to the public in case they have anything that they would like to ask or discuss.
Okay.
Smile for the camera. So
Is camera?
there is.
Yes, we are.
Oh, my.
So I'll hear about it tomorrow.
It's going out to the wide audience of Channel 5. All 4 or 5 of them.
So I guess I'll start the conversation, and maybe the best way to ask it is, can you talk to us about why you think that you would be a good fit for this position?
It's still a municipality. I love municipality work. I like working with the people and stuff. I'm a good organizer. I'm a good worker. I learn quick. I like Southampton. I've dealt with quite a few people from Southampton town itself, interaction, so I hope it'd make a good fit.
What kind of experience do you think you've had in the past that will help you succeed in this position?
I won't lie to you. I don't know a lot about the highway department. Yeah, you saw my resume. I've been in water treatment and water distribution for probably my whole career. So anything to do with management, organization, working, equipment, budgeting, meetings, I'm fairly confident I'm good at. The other stuff I'd have to learn as I go. I'm a pretty quick learner. So that's about it.
And how would you describe your management style?
Fair, honest. I give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm easygoing.
Mr. Seidel, you have a lot of water experience, and you've already admitted to us that you have no road experience.
Correct.
But in your work with the water, what heavy equipment have you utilized working in that detail?
Well, we do have backhoes and dump trucks, and when I work down the street, we have pipe trucks. I do get involved with plowing and maintaining our reservoirs, but I'll tell you right now, I've never plowed a highway. I sand and salt my own stuff down the street.
So your own stuff, I assume that you mean water?
Reservoirs, watershed, pump stations, treatment plants, anything within my jurisdiction I can handle.
Do you hold any licenses, CDLs, or
Class B, grade 2.
how about operation or management of the heavy equipment?
No.
No.
Do I hold a license?
No, but I'm saying management of heavy equipment. You know, planning the use of heavy equipment for
Yes.
road clearing and that.
Yeah, yep.
You've handled some construction projects, I think.
Yes.
Could you tell us about any construction project?
We just had a 24-inch water main leak on Resnick Boulevard Thursday. The manager was gone on a vacation leave, and I helped shut down the water mains and helped organize the digging up and the repair. The crews downstream later took over and finished the job. One of our big projects over 15 years ago was a 42-inch water main, and including our water treatment plant we built at Hoyoke, and I kind of oversaw, was involved with the step-by-step daily operations of all that, engineering all the way up. So I've seen some big construction jobs. We've had a water main leak on your guys' property right up here up at College Highway. I was there for pretty much the whole time. So, you know, we hired Marion Brothers to come in, oversaw that, organized the delivery of the equipment, the ordering of the materials, the actual construction work. I was hands-on. I'm a hands-on guy. I like to get right in and do stuff.
What do you think would be the problem for you in managing the highway department? The highway end of the highway department?
Just inexperience. There'd be definitely a learning curve. I'd have to, I'll tell you right now, I don't know what's involved. I'm sure it's well organized. I mean, you guys do a great job on your streets and stuff. I drive through them all the time. They're always well maintained and plowed. So you definitely have people that you rely on that do a good job. They know their routes. Somebody who organizes well, the equipment's well maintained. So it's just stepping in and learning that process.
Butch,
Yes.
specifications for equipment, what experience do you have with that? Putting specifications out there for equipment or material for particular jobs?
The manager basically wrote all the specifications for the material down the street, but any specifications for, like, if I needed a generator or treatment plant equipment, I was involved with ordering my own, writing the specs up for my own vehicles and equipment like that. I've written stuff up like that.
We have two unions. We have two unions in the highway department.
Yep.
One for supervisor
Ooh.
and one for rank and file. Do you have any experience dealing with labor organizations?
I used to be in a union. I was on union negotiations and stuff, and then I moved up to management. I mean, we have a union contract that I go by that oversee my guys. Like I said, I can only apply my experience to what I know in relation to yours, because I've been there a long time. Again, I would have to find out and learn on that.
Mm-hmm. One of the big things and time-consuming things is administrative work in this job, whether it's writing a grant or going after grants.
Yep.
Budgets, keeping an eye on the budget, staying in line with the amount of money that's allocated to your
Yep.
operations. What is your experience in those areas?
Well, I sit down with the manager and develop my budget for my reservoir division annually. As a matter of fact, February we'll be starting again. We submit it to the water commissioners and it goes in front of the city council. And then I'm pretty good at living within my means. But, you know, but again, that's experience. I mean, you've been here for so long, you know I need this much money, I need this much. I'm in the same boat. I'm a real organizer. If I went to Highland Hardware, I write that down. So in order for me to work my next year's budget, I itemize everything. So it gives me an idea, and you know, and I expect any new projects, I budget for those. So I I handle my section.
Plans and specs, is when I say plans and specs, projects that have plans and specifications. I'm sure you've had some experience with that
Yep.
in regards to the water mains.
Yep.
But we do have several projects that are in the pipeline, several subdivisions that are at various stages of completion and getting ready to start. Your experience with reading plans on a 1 to 10 and interpreting them is what?
8, 7, 8.
Okay.
I'm not fabulous.
I'm trying to make it easier for you.
No. I mean, you know, like I said, as far as water stuff, you know, I have my lay schedules and all the other stuff for that. Condominiums and complexes and stuff, water mains, laying installations, basing of hydrants, placing of valves, okay. Everything else I'd have to learn.
In regards to, winter operations are a
Critical.
nightmare, to say it the least.
Yep.
You could be working 25 days straight with 4 or 5 hours of sleep in between on a daily basis. This is what's required of the job, and this is what's going to go forward. That's something that I'm sure you're accustomed to it on a limited basis.
Yep.
But, you know, sometimes it goes on for a prolonged period, maybe 4 or 5 months. And I just want to know your expectations in regards to being able to function at those levels.
I don't think I'd have a problem with that. I mean, when we had the snowstorm and stuff up there, I had guys sleeping at the plants. We were getting back in and out. It wasn't for months at end, but it was weeks. You know, you rotate shifts, you expect the cranky people, and, you know, you deal with it. My thing is, you know, you do the best you can with what you have. And, you know, people have to go home and relax, rest, and regroup. And
Because unlike Coyle, where they run the snowstorms with 3 or 4 different shifts coming in all the
Yeah.
time, we don't have a shift.
No, I know.
We have the people we have.
Got a
and we
handful of
gotta keep
guys.
going. And at a time, if it becomes too much fatigue, you gotta evaluate the people and say, you need to pull them off and to rest them and go back after some rest. Those are some of the things that you're gonna be faced with, and you don't see any problems with that.
No.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just wondering, given, you know, the fact that you're inexperienced kind of with the highway department side of this,
Yeah.
what would be the first 4 or 5 steps you would take in assuming responsibility for this job?
Follow people around, learn the routes, see what they do, know what they know. Hopefully they're agreeable with that stuff, and you don't want to break any bridges or do anything until you learn what's going on. I mean, it obviously works. You don't want to start anything over. I'm sure, you know, I might have some suggestions or recommendations later on, but I just like to see how everything works, how it works out. I mean, like I said, I'm very comfortable where I am now. I know a lot. I mean, there's very few things that I don't know that covers in my field in 30 years. So this is scary. It's big. So I would have to rely on the people you have to either show or watch or stuff like that. And I'm a checklist nut and organization stuff, so I'm sure I would have sheets to hand out to, this is where you go, and I like signing things to document it, but that's what I do.
I do want to bring up one thing that I forgot to mention before. While we don't call this a DPW, we call it highway, it's really a misnomer. We're really a DPW.
Yep.
And we've been focusing on the water and the highway, but the current highway superintendent does more than just highway and water. Supervises the people who now take care of this building and
He does everything.
parks and libraries and all of those other things that don't go with highway and don't go with water. I don't know how much percentage of the job that is now.
Half.
It could be. It could be, depends on the day. It could be 100%. You also have a transfer station and landfill, you know, monitoring that goes on all the
Which
time.
I don't know anything about either. That's another thing we brought up when you guys had tried.
I mean, the
would have to
last
learn
thing I
stuff
can think
about
of
that.
is worked in supervising the new roof for the school.
But there's another thing too, is you'll be involved with, not just this board, will be involved with the planning board because you're their agent. with subdivisions, and they bring you in for recommendations.
Recommendations, yep.
And it's a hand in hand. Sometimes you get called on to work with the conservation on projects they
Which,
might have.
like what I do now, yeah.
And the Parks Department is another area where you'll be involved with, and school grounds.
Our members, 2 members came late.
That's
Happy
fine.
anniversary, by the way.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I was just
I had
too
to put
dumb to
that-
remember we started at 6.
I
so
had to put the
apologize.
plug in because she told me she wasn't going to be here tonight, but
No, I'm
she gave
sorry.
up. Do you, either one of you want to have any questions?
I have a question.
Be my guest.
Hello, I'm
Hi.
sorry for being late.
That's fine.
I just, I don't know if this was asked before, so I apologize. But if a major snowstorm were to occur in Southampton, how would you ready your staff and equipment? And how would you communicate with emergency responders, the select board, and the general public about any hazardous or worsening road conditions?
I don't even know what you have for a network to notify your people. I really don't.
I mean, like what?
Like I notify the mayor first. The mayor puts it on Channel 15. It goes to the fire department, police department, our emergency response groups. Everything gets notified for major stuff. We usually have all the leaders. We meet at the command center, and like for preparation stuff. And that's what we do.
I want to clarify this. This is only for major events.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. But that's what you said, like a major
Yes.
snowstorm. Yes.
Yeah. And God forbid it gets into the ice
Yeah.
stage again.
Well, I'm sure it's an organization nightmare. I mean, you got to get your people in on staff. You got your equipment ready. I'm sure you have sand and salt people standing by the loaders. There's got to be a whole stepping stone that you go through. But you guys have all handled that forever. Yeah, I know.
Ed's been here forever, right?
It's been here for as long as I can remember.
Before there was snow.
Well, just Jackie, you got a follow-up or you set?
No, that was, thank you.
No problem.
Henry, I again apologize.
You can tell me
I thought
both.
it started at 6:30
Okay.
and I was having dinner with my wife and I was like,
That's good.
better get there by 6:30.
No, that's good,
and
that's
I
good.
walk in and I go, oops. But thank you for your interest in the position.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
We've talked about different scenarios,
Yep.
but the real picture, to back up a little bit, is that, several years ago, we tried to make the highway department a DPW, which
Yep.
would mean sort of the water department and a few other things
Come on.
changing. And it came to a town vote, and there was a backlash from the citizens that they were taking away their vote because they couldn't vote for the water commissioners. I think that's what was the big thing. So there was a political pushback, but there was a thought process to sort of, really sort of certify what Ed does.
Mhm.
So my biggest concern is that whoever steps into Ed's shoes has the same mentality that Ed has had, in that whatever it takes to get the job done. Because the town has basic needs.
Yep.
Some of it is outside the highway department,
Yep.
but it's a need, and we have no other way of meeting that need, but sort of having it
Rely on
under
you.
that umbrella.
Yep.
And so we actually do function like a public works
Yep.
without the terminology.
Correct.
So how flexible do you feel?
I'm very flexible. I mean, I can leave and I'll help anybody. I mean, if you called me up and asked me for help, I'd be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've helped fire, police department, and my, water department, DPW. I haven't collected trash. But I've been down the wastewater treatment plant, I've been all over. I mean,
Well, sometimes he has to pick up mattresses out in the middle of
I can
other
pick up
dumpsters,
mattresses,
yeah,
but,
so-
and like I said, I'm a hands-on guy. I like to work with my hands. Lately, I'm a paperwork pusher. It drives me nuts. But I think I'm fairly flexible.
And how well are you taking spears in your back?
Spears in my back.
Well, I mean, I think it's a public, you've become the focal point of
Yeah,
all the potholes, and, God, my mailbox got biffed again by a
It's got to be
colleague.
very similar to me dealing with surface water and complaint calls. You got to remember that your bread and butter comes from the people. So you have to be tolerable, and you got to understand that.
Did you ever work at McDonald's, or?
No, never did. I worked in a restaurant, V. Mary's restaurant one
But you
time.
know, it's a service industry. where
It is.
we work for the taxpayer.
You work for the people.
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's it. And you got to remember that. And, you get some people that you know how to deal with them, and Some people have to be walked through, and you can never be rude. I mean, God, you have an enemy for life after that.
Now, one of the, just going again onto the DPW aspect of it, Ed is, you know, when Ed is involved in some of the things, it's going to Conservation Committee meetings, it's going to Planning Board meetings, it's going to all these different meetings because there'll be a concern of whether, you know, they're doing a cut in a road or whatever they're doing, so it gets kind of time consuming at times.
It's pretty much like what I do. I was just at my Board of Water Commission meeting. I didn't get home till 10 o'clock last night.
Okay.
But I've gone to conservation commissions, and again, if they need us for something to do, I go to those meetings and stuff. But again, a lot of road cuts, curbing stuff, I would have to learn that.
Okay. Can I ask a question
You can
about
ask.
the, so you have the 242s, the water pipes?
140.
142.
There's space for a second one in the future in
the
case.
future, okay. So there's 142.
Yes.
What was there before that?
In that 6-mile pipeline?
Yeah. What was it?
Nothing.
How did you get the water from the reservoir, the Holyoke?
Before?
42s.
2 old 20s. And
So
there
it's
was
two
a
20s.
11.5-mile pipeline that is a completely different route.
And is that working these days?
It's considered emergency standby,
Okay.
which they're cut away, but in the event that we ever have to utilize them, they're still there, and it's through an easement. The 42 is actually in a right-of-way, which we own now.
Right,
The
it's
other
that
stuff was in
whole
an
line that
easement.
goes across,
yes.
right? And then the 20s, the 220s, so the sections of the pipe have been cut.
At the influent point up at the Manhan, they were severed,
They were
and the
cut.
42 was connected
Okay.
right there. And then they've been disconnected as one used to dump into Ashley Reservoir, and there's still one that goes up to McLean's, but they've been severed off.
Okay. I was just curious, because the 220s go through my yard.
Oh, really? One's 1897 and one's 1927.
So I have no worry that something's gonna, like, explode in my yard.
No, they're drained, they're drained.
They're trained, okay. I was leading up to
You were
that
leading up to
part.
that, you could have started with
I just
that
wanted to make sure
first.
you knew what you're talking about.
No, okay.
You don't have to worry, you won't be at the top of a geyser. Jackie, you said you had one more question?
Yeah, I had just one more question.
Yeah.
Number 9, can you explain Jackie's Law, Dig Safe Law, and are you NIMS qualified? Never hear of those? I've heard of Dig Safe, but,
Isn't Jackie's Law the one with the,
I don't know what Jackie's Law
does
is.
the trenching?
Jackie's Law is a law that was established about 5 years ago when a little girl got killed, I think around Bridgewater, Mass. She was playing in the backyard where an excavator was there. The ground slid and suffocated her. They could hear her screaming. They were digging in the wrong area and she died. Shortly thereafter was a petition to stop these open pits from being left
Oh,
overnight.
yeah, okay, yeah.
And that became Jackie's Law.
Oh.
And there is now a state law enforced by every municipality, trench permits are required.
We permit in the city for our digging. Dig Safe's always called, and except for if there's an emergency, we usually don't leave anything open. If it is like the 24 we just have, it's plated and jersey barriered. I don't deal directly with Dig Safe. I call my dispatcher if they have to be called. And again, on need basis, I work with the crews down the street, but my major job is out at the water treatment plant.
right, and the third question was...
NIMS?
Yeah, what, I don't know.
I gave my,
I have the paperwork.
you gave me the paperwork. Anything that I'm a member of one of the people on the LEPC that represents the Holyoke Waterworks, which is our local emergency planning commission. So whatever certification they needed at the time, I've gone to classes at community college and stuff. It was quite a while ago. It's basically about incident,
NIMS?
Yeah.
NIMS is a class.
incident commanders stuff.
To authorize you to get involved with the first responders, 100,
Right.
200, 300, 400. It's a computer course you have to take before you can take the other ones.
Correct. So I gave you the certification. It's done. It's basically you want to know who's the boss. There's some people, and you want to separate yourself so it's an organized meeting, and the main people make the decision and flow it out to their subordinates or whatever you want to call them. So they're the ones that get all the information fed to them, and basically, like in our place, it's the Hoyle Fire Department. They're like the head guys on anything you have any kind of scenario set up. But we have actually drills at our plant and stuff through that, and we train with that stuff.
Anything further, David?
No more pipeline questions.
No, but, no, just, you know,
Yeah.
what the heck is that? Sorry. you know, with regulations, you know, to expand upon that,
Yep.
I had the fortune or misfortune of watching somebody working for the Holy Waterworks do work without putting silt prevention in place. I don't know if that was just an oversight.
Probably not. They probably wouldn't even think of it unless somebody's there to
But it's a
tell.
certain contractor that is known to,
Okay.
so I was just wondering about oversight for following appropriate, because Ed gets kind of all twisted up sometimes when I say, why can't you just do this? And he turns red and his steam comes out his ears. No, this is why you can't do it.
Well, he likes to see the job get done, and that's just.
Well, he
like
wants to
that.
get the job done, but he always wants to do the job by the letter of the law. And if you weren't sure of a certain aspect, who would you turn to
For something like that?
to anything you have?
Concom. I mean, if I have a project or something, I'm gonna call up the Concom guy and find out what's
Okay.
going on.
All right.
I mean, we've written regulations and stuff in our water resource protection plan, so we know what we can do within our own reservoirs through Concom.
Okay.
Um,
I drove by this work site for weeks and watched no silt areas there, and it was right at the reservoir, and I was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden they came up. And they didn't come up until later. The bales were in place way after a lot of the dirt had been moved around.
Is this at the bottom of my reservoir?
Yeah.
That was with the rainfall.
Well, this was a few years ago. It was a
Yes,
couple years
okay,
ago.
all right, now I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So,
That
but
was
anyways,
something recent.
huh?
That was something.
No, no,
recent.
no. So I just want to make sure that if you come into a situation that you know that there are people in town that you could ask and that you do feel comfortable asking.
Oh, yeah, I do feel comfortable. For that instance, I didn't expect that, and it wasn't like an actual stream flow, that was seepage from our reservoir.
Okay.
And then that's what got into when we had the heavy rains, that's what got into the main end flow when it rained.
Okay.
Which, Charlie?
Yeah.
Call me.
Charlie.
Charlie McDonald called me,
We
yeah.
went up and looked.
We went up and we jumped on it.
Okay.
But, I mean, you know, you hear dirty, what's going on here? And like I said, if you went up there, it's a seepage thing with the weir and the water actually trickles over.
Okay.
So as it washed in, then it flowed into the river. That's where it got caught. And I wouldn't even have expected that to happen.
Okay.
But foresight now, yeah, I should have.
Okay. All right.
But I'm not afraid to admit that, you know, that's what I did and jump on it as soon as you tell me, you know, what's going on.
Ed? All set, I guess.
One last question. Why do you want to work in Southampton?
Opportunity. I won't kid you, the money's better.
Okay.
Nice group of people, very organized, professional. I was talking to Liz, I said it was a nice experience to deal with your group.
Nice to hear.
I didn't want to say it's unexpected. You know, I'm figuring small town, but it was, I don't want to offend anybody, but it was very nice to deal with the group of you.
It's mostly volunteers.
And I appreciate the opportunity. It was, like I said, it was very nice.
All right, anybody on the committee with any questions for Mr. Seidel? And I think we call for any questions from the public for Mr. Hank?
Yes, I was on the planning board for 10 years, and we relied very heavily on Ed when it came to analyzing subdivision proposals. And Ed was able to get the various developers to adhere to our subdivision standards, and in some cases, particularly with regard to storm drainage, to exceed them without the developers bridling. And I think on one or two occasions, maybe they even dig things up that they already installed or put in different kind of pavement. So the question is, have you ever interacted with and had to inspect and oversee private contractors' works?
Absolutely, and the main goal is to try to get out as much of it as you can out of them for free, yes. So if you can push the limits of the project and get more from them and they're cooperative, you can get whatever you can if you can get it for nothing. And you got to be fair with them too. And you know, if you're good to them, they're usually pretty good to you. That's my experience. If you burn the bridges right up front, I mean, it's hard to get any favors or anything extra, and there's going to be a fight all the way. So there's got to be a give and take all the way. But as long as you know the main objective, that's what, if you can set them on it, and this is what we want to achieve, and they're usually pretty good about doing that.
Anyone else?
Thank you. My name is Doug Blanchard.
Hi,
I
Doug.
was selectman for 8 years.
Yep.
So I know fairly well what's going on in the town and so on and so forth. Ed Colley's one of the exceptional people. He would make generally 3 meetings at night a
Yeah.
week. Are you prepared to do so?
I do whatever I have to do, which I do now. I'm on call 24/7 at my place. Any kind of chlorine emergencies or ammonia stuff, I'm there with the fire department. If they need me down the street, I'm there. I've gone to city council chamber meetings, mayor meetings. I don't think I ever did 3 a night. No, that's pretty
No, 3 in a
good.
week.
3 in a week.
Oh, 3 in a week.
Yeah, 3 in a week.
I've done 3 in a week. Okay, I was gonna go, wow, that's pretty good. But
Yeah.
you were running. Like I said, I'm not going to kid you. Whatever I do now, I'm good at, and I'm good at organizing, and there is definitely a lot of stuff I would have to learn. I don't want to stab myself in the back over it, but there is. There's stuff that I probably never know from the experience that he's had, but I would definitely have to learn stuff. I'm not telling you I'm going to walk right in and go, magic, it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. And yeah, there'll be people mad at me, I'm sure of that. I'm used to that. But I do my best.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
Thank you. We're gonna, before we should consider how we're gonna do this. We're gonna do the interviews tonight and discuss this at a later meeting and advise the candidates at that point in time?
Yes.
That's the plan? Okay.
No, it's not my plan. I'm leaving Friday.
Where you going?
I've upped
Vacation.
up 3 times already. I'm not re-upping again.
I mean,
I think we should be picking a candidate tonight.
Henry, thank you so much.
I just wanted to, so Mr. Seidel would be
She said
aware.
advise at a later date, I'm thinking I'm not gonna get out of here till 10 o'clock, I wouldn't be making my phone call tonight, that's what I was.
No, but we can make them tomorrow.
All right. so
I'm done?
hopefully- Yeah.
Okay. I feel a lot better after I'm talking. I'm a good gabber. I don't feel as nervous. When I first come in, I'm very nervous.
We thank you for coming
I
tonight.
thank you for the
Thank you so
opportunity.
much.
Thanks, Henry.
You've all been very nice. Thank you.
Take care.
Father with you?
Pardon?
Bring your dad with you?
No, I didn't. He's actually at Dr. Beers at the dentist.
So you dropped him off, huh?
No, he beat me today. I'm minding that much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You wanna just start?
Yeah, I wanted to do that earlier.
Oh, thank you.
I thought that was your coat.
Oh, geez.
That was her coat?
Yeah.
Okay, so our next candidate is Randall, he's in the back of the room.
Who's this guy?
This is Randall. Hi, Randall.
Hi, Randall. What do you work?
Around.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Chocolate court.
I know, I can't do it though.
He's Randy. To me, Randy. He's Caleb's dad. We'll call you Randall if you want.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you for coming. So the process kind of works like this. We have the committee in the front row, the selectmen up here, and we'll ask you some questions. And then after that, we'll open the floor to the public. And if they have any questions, then feel free to ask.
All right. Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, you can start.
Okay. So I guess my first question for you would be, why would you be a good fit for the highway superintendent position?
Great question. Okay. I'm invested in this town. I live here. My kid goes to school here. I'm on town committees, and my wife is too. I think I have project management experience and the ability to learn what I don't know, demonstrated ability to learn what I don't know to get the job done.
Okay. Can you talk to us a little bit about your management style?
My management style, I'd have to say the goal of a manager, an effective manager, is to get the employees to a point where you can delegate a task and they're going to perform that task in an expected amount of time and level of quality. I'd say if that doesn't happen, the manager then has to either reevaluate their expectations or try and do everything you can to help the employee get to the point you want them.
What would people you've managed in the past say about you as a manager?
I would be putting words in their mouths, but I would hope they would say that I'm detail-oriented, thorough, fair, handsome.
Slip that one again. I thought I heard that. Like, wait a minute.
Well, Ed's very handsome, so you get that qualification now.
So, I mean, right now you work for the highway department.
Yes.
What do you think would be your greatest challenge coming from the position you're in now to the superintendent of all the people you work with?
That in itself, I think, would be a huge challenge, going from a peer to a management position. But I also think that gives me an advantage. I already know all the employees. I think I have a pretty good idea of their strengths and how best to utilize them.
How will you deal with people who may give you some pushback? How is that something you'd handle?
I think you've got to push back a little in return, but in general, I would try to talk to them, see if you can work out whatever's bugging them, and go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're from Vermont?
Yeah.
Eagle Scout?
Yep.
What was your project?
I redid the interior of the volunteer fire department, which was also like a town-utilized space.
Are you still involved in Scouts at this time?
I'm not, but I've got a 6-year-old, so I expect it's only a matter of time.
What's your 6-year-old's name?
Caleb.
Caleb. When you look at your career, and I've looked at some of the things that you've done in the past, what types of management positions have you been in the past?
At Environmental Compliance Services, I was a project scientist, and in that capacity, I managed about a dozen projects. And in order to get the work done on those projects, there was a pool of field technicians who I could pull from. So I would manage anywhere from 1 to 5 field technicians and or subcontractors, because we did drilling, excavation, things of that nature.
Very good. When you are in that management position, were you responsible for any finances, like for setting a budget and whatnot?
Yes, all those projects had budgets which had to be stuck to, and I would help develop the budgets. I've helped Ed develop the FY13 and 14 budgets.
And speaking of that, when Ed is away, have you filled in to help with some of his management
No,
positions?
that mostly falls to the foreman.
To the foreman. And have you had any other management experience besides the environmental services?
Not really, no. Other than if Ed sent me out with the vac truck to clean out catch basins, I would be basically managing that guy to make sure the job got done.
Have you attended any of the other meetings in town, like the planning board or conservation commission?
I'm a conservation commissioner since 2008,
Okay.
and I'm also on the community preservation committee.
Okay. I'm sorry if I forgot that. I apologize.
You appointed me to conservation.
For a long time. I'm sorry. I apologize. So you know that those meetings can go long, and you've seen Ed's role in some of those meetings and how important it is to have Ed there, especially when you're talking about construction projects and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Management. Okay. And you have, it looks like you have the licenses that you need. His licenses are up to speed.
Yes.
I've taken every opportunity. Anything Ed suggested I should get, I've gotten it.
Okay.
In fact, I've got update to my resume. Last time I met with the committee, we were talking about NIMS certification, and I also received my water license since then, so I have those 2 things.
Congratulations. You want to keep these, I would assume.
Oh yeah, those, please return those.
Do you think you're ready for it?
I think so, yeah. It's going to be a big step up, and it's going to take a lot of work, but
I feel like an area is to sort of do that. What do you think would be most helpful?
the nuts and bolts of what Ed does in the office every day. Payroll, where all the projects are, like East Street's going to be paved next year, Glendale, then East Street the following year. I need to get up to speed on all of those. You know, the details of what grants to go after, how aggressive do you need to be with people to get on the tip, things like that.
What about hiring firemen? Have you ever fired someone?
No,
Have you ever hired somebody?
no.
Have you ever worked with union negotiations and union contracts?
On the labor side, I was involved in the highway.
You were on the other side of the table all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But you haven't been on the management side yet.
I have not, no.
I'll take a couple of other questions. I'll let Steve answer. Thank you.
Jackie?
Hello.
Hi.
This is a really basic question, but it's one of common sense, and I would think because this position holds so many different hats, you know, you have to wear so many hats that you need to have some common sense, and this is, if a major snowstorm were to occur in Southampton, how would you ready your staff and equipment? And how would you communicate with emergency responders, the select board, and general public about any hazardous or worsening road conditions? So I mean, you know, like you're there, it snows, and what would you do next?
Okay, I assume I've already got the plows on the trucks. They're all loaded up with ballast.
You've already prepared, you're ready.
Right, okay. It starts snowing, and I think there's going to be, what, a foot of snow? Well, you'd pre-treat the roads to get out there, and then once you had a couple inches on the road, you'd go out and plow.
Is there a system to do that? A certain amount of inches, you send out more people, then do you have to think about the budgets and how many times you can plow, and
Well, I would say the primary responsibility is public safety. You've got a budget, but public safety comes first, I would say. And as far as communication with the select board and emergency, like fire and police,
Yeah, I mean, if it's a really bad storm and you need to...
I would assume, I'm not sure exactly how Ed communicates with them, but I know dispatch keeps us in communication with them if they need anything. And then, so you just try and keep up with the snow and not let it get too deep, basically.
Are you prepared to have a lot of sleepless nights if you get this job?
Ed, you know that I already do have sleepless nights on this job. Not as many as you do, I know, but since I applied, I've been up watching the weather, see how it goes, and then see what you do to take care of the storms. So, yes.
You realize, I mean, you've been in there, you've been through three winters, I believe now.
Yep.
No two storms are alike, no two preparations are alike, no two events are even remotely comparable. And some takes a little time, some takes a lot of time. But you're the last one in the job, and you're the last one, and you're the first one to come in. These are things you have to be prepared for. And after that's done, you got to be ready for an 8-hour day.
I think you can attest.
I mean, I know you experience what the highway department goes through and what's going on, but there are certain things like planning. I know you're very orientated with planning and orchestrating your next steps, but there's a lot of it. And do you feel that you can handle that?
I think so, yeah.
To the point that sometimes Saturdays and Sundays, when your wife is driving with you in the car and your mind's somewhere else, and she won't talk to you because you're not talking to her, okay? Because you're planning.
Let's not bring Ann into this, okay?
I just got refreshed. about my deadline Friday.
I would expect to be in the office a lot of weekends trying to get up to speed on a lot of things.
I'm at a disadvantage because I've seen some of these questions that I have in front of us. I know what he's capable of doing, but there's a lot of interplay with federal and state and local and private agencies for funding. And do you think you can handle that in regards to personalities, competition, putting extra time in that's required to get the projects?
For grants and things, that's what you're talking about? Yeah. I worked with you and Joyce to get the reimbursements for the October snowstorm and the, was it February 2012 snowstorm. It's a lot of documentation and a lot of work, but I think it brought a lot of money back to us.
I'm all set.
Just remember, he's gone on Friday, so anything you say cannot be used against you later on. But I'm going to ask you, what do you like about working for the highway department? And don't say him, because that's not an acceptable thing.
What do I like about working for the highway department?
Driving big trucks and...
Yeah, big trucks, big excavators, but seriously, what I'm doing affects the people in the town I live in. Like, when I'm sanding a road, I'm not just sanding a road, I'm thinking about, well, this is the road that Liz and her kids are on. This is the road that my kids are on. You know, it's, I don't know, I take a lot of responsibility in this job, and it feels better than being a consultant, my last job, where I was just spending clients' money.
Which was my next question. What did you like about, why do you like working for the highway department, and why didn't you stay with your last job? What caused you to leave there?
I was laid off from environmental compliance services.
What didn't you like about that job?
There was a lot of competition there to, let's say, maximize the project cost. You're supposed to do everything in the best interest of your client, but in my opinion, that's not always the way things always happen with consultants.
We've talked the last time with the last candidate. We call you the highway superintendent, but in truth, you're jack of all trades, and in fact, you're the DPW. You manage all of the buildings, all of the facilities, and you manage, maybe the wrong word, care for or under direction of other people, manage those resources. I mean, any problems with that kind of setup? Even though we're not calling you the DPW, we're calling you the highway superintendent, everything falls within, just to be clear, that the job description is all encompassing of all the facilities.
I've been performing the job for the past 2.5 years, and I have a pretty good idea of all the things we do and the properties we take care of.
I just want to be clear. He only mentioned that he plows Liz's road.
Oh, no, I don't even plow Liz's road. I was just using that as an example.
I just was clear to point out that he takes care of Liz, not us.
Well, it's good to know it's not him plowing my road. Whoever else does it does a great job.
Starting all over again, anything? Any follow-ups?
There's a couple questions I'm trying to formulate in my head, so can I just ask those at the end?
Can we come back to you? Jackie?
Well, I'm going to go back to number 9. Can you explain Jackie's Law, Dig Safe Law, and are you an NIM qualified?
And the answer, he's NIMS now because we passed around the...
That's right, okay.
But what level, I guess, would be Jackie's?
I've taken the introduction. If necessary, I can take the rest of the courses, but they are, if you've ever taken them, they're like 3-hour-long PowerPoint presentations, and frankly, I'm not going to take them unless it's advantageous to do so. So Jackie's Law basically it's legislation that was passed to protect people from falling into trenches. I believe a little girl was killed, and that's the reason the law was passed. It has to do with the trench being secured at the end of the workday and limiting access to it. Dig Safe is to prevent people from hitting underground utilities. So you call in and get the site pre-marked, and member utilities will come out and mark where their utilities lie.
So-
That's generally the difference between those two.
So safety is really important to you?
Yeah. It was huge at ECS. Everything was, you have to keep your mod rate down because it's liability. And it's the same thing here. So safety is huge.
I just want to touch on this. Are you familiar with the Wetlands Protection Act?
Yes, as a conservation commissioner.
There you go. Yeah.
Just want to make sure. And I think that was, that's it. That's all I got.
In regards to field work, okay, is there anything you haven't done in the highway department that you are weak in?
Some of the water stuff I've had limited experience with, but I would think that's a little more water department. I don't know. Is there things I haven't done?
It's a test question. I know I've had, administrative-wise, you've done some administrative work for me while over there, but there's a lot more of it that's involved. As any of that, you have any questions on any of that stuff?
I probably have a lot of questions.
Got the 90, strap grants.
That's the thing. Those are the things, the nuts and bolts,
Okay.
that I'm going to need to get up to speed on.
That's it.
That's your questions now?
Raising a young family, it's kind of hard to meet all the expectations that Ed's been doing, and some of them is that, he goes to multiple meetings during the week. You feel pretty comfortable with the time allotment. It's
Between Amanda and I, my wife Amanda, we both go to meetings probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at most weeks.
And how thick is your skin? How well can you catch a spear?
I'd say I could probably work on it a little bit, but I can grit my teeth pretty well.
Because you're going to be, if anything happens, pothole, mailbox gets biffed by Todd.
I've read masslive.com. I know.
Okay? So the first thing I'm going to tell you, don't read Mass Live.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm going to tell you right now, don't read Mass. If anybody wants to put something on masslive.com and can't put their name to it, then it's not worth reading.
I notice a lot of them don't end up showing up to selectmen meetings.
Well, I don't even know who it is, but they don't put their name on it, it's not worth reading. So you feel pretty comfortable that you're now going to be the focal point if anything goes wrong.
I realize that, yes.
You feel pretty comfortable with that.
Comfortable with it? I can deal with it, yeah.
All right. Following the same format, does the committee have anything, any questions?
I have a question.
You have a question?
Actually, I have a couple. And I did ask these questions at the initial interview. In terms of budgetary responsibility, what was the largest budget that you handled at environmental?
Probably a dozen. I'd say it was less than 25,000. And that was a culmination of like 12 projects, running projects at a time.
Okay. And in terms of the involvement that you had with the highway department during the reimbursement for the storm, how much of that information you were able to gather based on the resources, or was it already available and it was just a matter of reporting it?
It was a lot of taking Ed's notes, timesheets, things like that, and getting it into the form that FEMA and MEMA wanted it. So it was filling out in creating database spreadsheets and just making sure everything jived, providing all the backup to them. So I guess a lot of it was available. It was just putting it in a form that they
Organized.
wanted it. Yes.
And you said you also worked on the FY13 budget. What was your involvement in that in terms of how it was? I know you have a prior year to compare it to, but what was the understanding that you had in developing that budget with Ed Colley?
It was a lot of asking Ed where the numbers come from for specific bids like salt cost, the cost of salt and sand and things like that. It was the finance committee asked for justification for all the costs. So in finding out those justifications, I was able to discover a lot of where the numbers did come from.
I have one last.
Go.
Sorry.
No, I wasn't meaning to.
The last I have concerns, how would you say your reactive time is in terms of projects that you have been working on that you can pick up that there's a problem and you need to address it sooner rather than later?
I
Have
react.
you had that experience?
Can you give an example?
Well, something doesn't get done on a project and it's going to affect the outcome. How closely are you overseeing that would allow you or cause you to act? I mean, you did deal with gasoline, gas station spills, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, like I get a call that there's been a gasoline spill?
Right.
Oh, so like emergency response you walk?
Place, right?
Excuse me?
You plan on a course of action to respond to that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm referring to, something like that.
Like what? How? The time frame? You try and do it as quick as
If there
possible.
was a problem in the course of action that you had taken, how quickly could you identify that you needed to then address a detour?
How adaptive or flexible or?
No, it's not adaptive. It's sort of that crisis mentality that, it's similar to what I would consider Ed does. He has a plan for a storm and something happens that he has to redirect that energy. How quickly would you say you are intuitive in terms of jumping on?
I think I'm pretty quick. I would say I'm.
Have you been tested?
No.
Okay.
But does Ed really have
So
a
that's
plan?
a learning curve.
But you're saying that Ed has a plan.
No, at this point, he knows some of these situations.
Well,
He's very comfortable.
I mean, I think I know what Mill's asking. If you run into a standard project and you run into a hidden condition, something you didn't anticipate, how are you going to handle it? In other words, if the hidden condition is hazardous material, you're going to shut down the project, or it might be somebody dumped a bag of asbestos in there and you weren't anticipating picking it up, or, it causes for a change of menu.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. But it's very subjective. I can't. And if you give me a more specific hypothetical, I might be able to answer it. But if you're asking me if I'm adaptive and able to deal with change, yes.
Well, I'm not a technical person, so I can't give you those examples. I have not been in trenches.
So you were a Boy Scout, right?
Yes.
What's the motto? Be prepared?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it?
That's it? Anything from the public?
Other questions?
Hank.
Yeah, I asked the preceding candidate the same question. As you know, I was on the planning board for 10 years, and as you know, Ed, we relied on Ed when it came to evaluating subdivisions, making sure that the subdivision regulations were followed. And in doing that, he had to, on the one hand, have a good relationship with the developers, but on the other hand, and get them to sometimes go beyond the regulation requirements, particularly with regard to storm drainage. On the other hand, he had to be able to say, you did that wrong, you've got to dig it up. How do you see yourself relating to private contractors?
I've worked with private contractors before, and they're going to try and get out of it as cheaply as they can. So you sometimes have to push them to make sure they're doing the job correctly. I think I have a lot of reading to do to get more familiar with the subdivision bylaw that Southampton has. But once I am familiar with it, I don't have a problem pushing them in the right direction.
Anything further? All set? Anyone else?
Do you have any questions for us?
Not really, no.
All right, all set?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't forget your papers.
Not sure where. I like the one thing.
Give me back the papers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I sent them back down.
I was going to try to check my phone.
Spends a lot of money.
Chinese food.
Mr. Slattery, you're not going to ask any questions? You're not going to ask any questions?
No, I'm just, all right.
Fair enough.
Just that, that's nothing with this.
No. Otherwise I wouldn't. William Friese is our next applicant. He's right here. If you want to come up and meet everybody you haven't met, that's okay with us.
Mike Pam.
Nice to see you again. Hello.
Hi, Dave McDougall, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
I should introduce myself.
How are you? I'm good, thank you. Did you drive all the way down this afternoon?
Yes.
You did. And are you driving all the way back this evening?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
To Poughkeepsie. Poughkeepsie.
So the process is the board will ask you a bunch of questions.
Okay.
And then we're going to open the floor up to the public to ask you any questions they may or may not have.
Okay.
And that's it.
I'll do my best.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start. Can you tell us why you think you'd be a good fit for the position of highway superintendent?
I think I would be a good fit for this position. I've had some leadership experience and a lot of construction experience. I haven't had too much public works experience, but I feel like I have a lot more to contribute in other areas, and it would be a really good way for me to give back to the community and serve the people around me.
Can you talk to us about any management experience you've had? Maybe what you're doing with Daniel O'Connell's now and how you would describe your leadership style or management style?
I haven't had a specific management position, but I have on one of the job sites. I'm a field engineer, and I've been on 3 jobs. And on one of the jobs, I was the head safety, the site safety superintendent, and I had the responsibility to keep everybody under. We were going a lot more stringent than OSHA regulations, and we actually had OSHA visit the site 3 times during that year-long project. And there were a couple citations, but never to Daniel O'Connell's. And so that was a huge learning experience for me, dealing with all the subcontractors, and a lot of the safety rules seem like counterproductive, slow everybody down, and it was quite the task keeping everybody up to our standards. And, it was definitely a give and take relationship. I've been head field engineer on the last 2 jobs I've been on, and it was a big responsibility for me to make sure that the subcontractors were doing the work to the drawings and in the right spot and to the right tolerances. And on the most recent job, there's 2 newer field engineers there, and I've been guiding them, trying to let them make their own decisions, and just teaching them everything I know.
What do you think that they would say about your ability to guide?
You'd have to ask them, but
What would you hope they'd say about your ability to guide?
they might not agree with everything I do. I can definitely see them getting mad at me a lot, but I've seen a lot of growth in both of them, and I think they've come a long way from just the almost 4 months that I've been out there in Poughkeepsie. So I see a result. I don't know if they see it or not. But I do.
David?
What was your Eagle Scout project?
It was in the local park down the street from my house, and there was a trail system through the park. It had never been mapped out, or it was not really delineated well. It was, I forget how many miles it was. It was a long time ago. But we put up 2 kiosks with trail maps on them that I came up with. Well, some of the trails were already named, some of them weren't, so I came up with fitting names that the township supervisors agreed with, and we put up the 2 kiosks, and then I forget how many 4x4 post trail markers there were throughout the trail, but the whole project ended up being, it was over 200 man hours.
Congratulations. Thank you. Now, were you in ROTC?
Yes, a few times. I was in Air Force JROTC in high school. I was in Army ROTC in college for, it was 1 or 2 semesters. And then I went to Marine Corps Officer Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia for 10 weeks. I ended up not commissioning as an officer in any of those branches. I made some personal decisions. But I definitely learned a lot from all those programs. It was huge experience for me.
Now, have you ever, so you're currently sort of managing these 2 junior engineers. Have you ever been in a position to, say, hire and fire somebody or anything like that? Or?
No, I've never been in a position to hire or fire somebody.
And what about developing budgets for business budgets?
The most budgeting I've ever done is for me and 1 other person. We have a company that builds aftermarket parts for off-road performance vehicles. So every new product we come out with, I couldn't tell you how many we have now. I'd have to count them. Probably somewhere along the lines of 10 different kits. But for every kit, we have to decide what we're putting into it, what we're going to be making on it, based on our time and the materials, and based on price fluctuations that we usually see in the companies that we subcontract to, and then you have to balance what you think people will pay for it. So that's.
So why did you choose engineering for a major? What drew you to engineering?
I just like building things. I like making things that people will use and make people's lives easier, and hopefully making a difference in the world. I know that probably sounds pretty cliche, but.
So when you were in officer candidate, was it officer candidate school?
Yes.
Or, okay. So it looks like you were in charge of 12-man squads and stuff like that. So you had to delegate and lead at that.
Absolutely.
Do you feel comfortable? How many on the highway now?
There's 9 full-timers and 3 part-timers.
How comfortable would you feel supervising individuals that may have actually more experience than you in different areas on the highway? How comfortable are you with that?
I'm pretty comfortable with that. I've been a field engineer for Daniel O'Connell's for 2 years now. Pretty much everybody that I work with knows more than I do.
Okay.
So.
And it looks like you live in here in town and whatnot. There's a time commitment that's beyond just the regular 5-day week. And there's a lot of meetings that occur. There's a lot of volunteers who run different committees here. Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Select Board, and Ed, before he was a select person, even now he is a select person, but he runs around to all these different meetings because the highway super becomes a resource. And are you aware of the scope of time commitment for evening meetings and stuff like that? It's like maybe 3 meetings a week, an hour or 2 a night.
I'm aware of what I've been told by you guys.
Okay.
I would like a little deeper understanding of it at some point, but I currently work 50 to 60 hours a week. My last job, I was coming in on Saturdays.
Okay.
I'm used to getting 6 hours of sleep every night at the most.
Well, you're young, you can handle it. Do you like plowing snow?
I've never done it,
You
but
never
I
plowed?
would imagine that I would.
Do you like taking out mailboxes?
Not on Pleasant Street.
I know
Ed does.
Okay, I have no questions right now. I'm going to
Okay.
think a couple other things, but I'd turn it over to Jack.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jackie Sears.
Nice
Thank
to
you for,
meet you.
you too, thank you for coming. I just have a really basic question. I'm the kind of person that, common sense, if you can think on your feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that's what Ed, that anything that comes in front of him, he can handle, and, and so my question is, if a major snowstorm were to occur in Southampton, how would you ready your staff and equipment, and how would you communicate with emergency responders, the select board, and the general public about any hazardous or worsening road conditions in the town during the storm?
How would I communicate those issues?
Right, but initially, how would you prepare? Have you ever been involved in a major storm, like even in the Marines or wherever you were, did you get people to
No, we never did any
maintenance kind of?
maintenance stuff like that.
No.
But in a different application at my company, at Daniel O'Connell, something new comes up every day. It's always different. It's always, well, especially for a new engineer, like a relatively new engineer like myself, stuff I've never seen before. And I try to maintain some calmness, collectiveness, and look at everything that's available. Try to think of everything you can, and you're never going to have perfect information on anything. So you have to kind of take it as it comes.
So you're,
I don't know if that answered your question.
no, so what you're saying is you can evaluate a situation and make a wise decision on the spot?
Yeah, yes, I feel that I can.
If you have all the variables,
Well, just
resources at hand.
Anything that's available, I can work. I'm always trying to figure out how to make something work with the little that I have.
Oh, and thank you for your service in the United.
Oh, I didn't serve.
Well, but I mean, just to be involved, I know my daughter's a Marine, and it is so hard, like to get through basic and all that. Did you even have to do that?
OCS is closely, from what I understand, is closely modeled to what the enlisted person goes through at
Yeah.
Parris Island. But,
That's tough.
The individuals that I met down at Quantico were some of the most amazing people I've had the pleasure of meeting. So I definitely have a much deeper understanding and respect for everybody who does serve. I myself haven't done anything, but that there are experiences that I'm very glad I was able to take a part in.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, back to your communication skills. How would you update, the police, the fire, and, people in town about a situation if it was an emergency?
I'm not sure what means of communication you guys typically use, if you call them or if there's some sort of text system. We used to have one at the buses on PVTA. If any information was pertinent, it would pop up on our little screens. But
I don't know, Ed, do you text?
I test when I have to, but first of all, you're put in a position, he's not the emergency management director.
Right, I know,
That's
but-
just another job that I have.
Exactly.
He would be really doing too much of the questions.
Right, but you still had to communicate with,
I communicate all the time.
right,
Right. I have 4 means of communication.
which is what I was asking him.
What's that?
That's what I was asking him, how he would communicate with, you
Well,
know,
if he's not the highway superintendent, they would be communicating to him.
right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, whatever I have means available. I don't know.
Thank you.
Bill, I have talked to some of the people that you had references, and they're very high on you, and they say an awful lot of good things about you. You're a go-getter, you'll finish anything you've been assigned to, and you complete things in a timely and appropriate manner. But some of the things, I didn't have the chance to talk to the gentleman who you worked with at UMass, because I was interested in that aspect of your resume where you were at UMass working for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, repairing buses.
Transit Authority.
Transit Authority, which is under the Pioneer Valley?
Yeah, Pioneer Valley Transit Authority is the company, and then UMass Transit is,
Okay.
well, it's the, UMass Transit is part of UMass, but the two entities merged and they use the same garage, but,
Could you tell me some of the things you did with it?
I was mostly the old 99 buses, the floors would rot out right above the rear differential. So my job was to take the old floors out, which were plywood with a linoleum surface, and then I ripped out the extent of the rotten floor to the nearest bulkheads, which sometimes came halfway up the bus. And then the design of those buses isn't really perfect, not a whole lot is, but there's a lot of maintenance items that were a lot easier to get to once that floor was out. I replaced a couple control arms and checked the actuators for the airbags. More simple stuff, but once all that stuff was good, then it was mostly carpentry, replace the floor, put the linoleum down, and they're still using them today. I talked to Claude not too long ago, he's still running those buses, so.
Did you do anything with the engine repair?
Engine repair, not for the PVTA.
Because I was just curious on how you got involved with this private business you're doing with.
Well, when I was 19, I bought an 19 or 20. I bought an 83 Chevy truck, which was a piece of crap for $200. And I pretty much learned everything from that. I had that truck. I did a lift kit in the parking lot behind my dorm. Parking service was furious with me because I had the entire suspension out from underneath the truck. The whole frame was on 2 piers of cinder blocks I picked up at Home Depot, and it took me about, it's the first lift kit I did, it took me about a month working in the parking lot after class, but just fixing that thing every weekend and beating it up out on the trail. I learned a lot, and I've had quite a few vehicles since then, and I built a lot, especially with my business partner I met one night at UMass, and we got together, we started really wrenching on trucks, and it's just kind of been a passion.
Campus cops left you alone, huh?
After I explained what I was doing, they did.
Bill, in my job, you know, you're called on in the middle of the night, more than not, out of a dead sleep, and you have to perform. And sometimes you go 3 or 4 days without the rest your body really needs. And it happens once and twice, and it goes through the whole winter that way. Have you thought about that part of the job?
I have been
thinking. Extremely exhausting.
I have been thinking about it. I stretch myself thin a lot, probably more than I should. I I've had the most experience with that at OCS, where we got 4 hours of sleep every night for 10 weeks. And that was, I would fall asleep standing up constantly. But it was, that's where I have the most experience with that kind of work. But it is something I've been thinking about. And I do think I can handle it.
Now, I know, working with Dan O'Connell, you're dealing with specs and plans, and I'm not going to even ask for an answer on that. You went to school, you should know all that stuff. You also, how about inspecting and servicing, you know, like contractors? Have you had experience with that other than, you're a safety engineer, obviously you're taking care of OSHA requirements for the most part, but are you getting involved with the actual layout of the projects and the oversight?
Yeah, that's my main job. On the job, I was a safety officer. Nobody else wanted to do it,
Okay.
so I had that as well. But yeah, I do all the layout, all the control is based off of all the HVAC, the walls, everything is based off of the lines that I put down in the field.
You do all the core samples and stuff?
No, we don't do core samples. That's usually subcontracted out to somebody.
Did you get the results and you interpretate them?
No, I usually don't do that with soil samples or concrete tests. What I do is mostly location.
We require in all our subdivisions nuclear density tests
Okay.
with an outside agency that we locate the sites and to make sure that the right material is put in at the depth that we wanted. And are you familiar with that?
I've seen it done. I probably was an intern at that point or just starting out as a field engineer at O'Connell's, but I saw the instruments he was using. I talked to him a bit about it. That's about as far as my experience with that goes.
Those are tools that we use quite a bit when it comes to construction to make sure we get a proper density before we pave over them. But I'm sure you know that. But in regards to testing, you know, out in the site, what kind of experience do you have?
Testing on the site.
On-site testing, soil samples, core samples.
Well, I took soils classes at UMass. I learned a lot of that stuff. Some of it I'm sure I've forgotten by now, but I have no problem looking into it and teaching myself and figuring it out. But most of the testing, soil quality, density, soil density is pretty straightforward. I can look at the soil density and say yes or no, but it's mostly handled by somebody else.
I mean, did you have the ability to look at the results and see what the test showed?
I've looked at some of the results, yeah.
Interpretate them.
Not all of them, probably about,
Did you have much experience with materials as far as, the various gravels, rocks, and pavement material?
I took a concrete class at UMass. It's mostly structural strengths. We talked a little bit about aggregate size and air and water and everything that makes up concrete and different ratios to use it in. But it's definitely something I need to refresh myself in.
And I know you have no experience with plowing. Don't feel that it's a negative. It will come and you'll learn because you'll be the only one there and you need to do it. You've worked with budget numbers and you stayed within your budgets. In the highway department, we have X amount of money and we have to make it work. And stretching it, like you said, but we also have to deal with making sure things are done appropriately. That safety is number one, fatigue and all that falls into that, and it sounds like you got a handle on that from work. With that being said, you have any questions for us?
I don't have any questions specific for this group. I do have some technical questions I was kind of curious about as I was reading up on things, but I don't think that
Go
needs
ahead.
to be discussed.
If you want,
I'll go ahead.
yeah, if you want to ask them.
I was looking into the Chapter 90 program, and it references some, I believe it's Mass general laws.
Yeah.
When I was going from the Mass DOT webpage to the parts of the law they referenced to the actual Mass general laws, it didn't seem to match up.
You might have went to another section that takes care of police enforcement.
Okay.
But under a DOT, under Mass Highway, there's a, the biggest Bible is the Mass Bridge and Road Specification Blue Book.
Okay.
It's printed, costs about $30, $38 a book. I think the last print was about 5 years ago, but it's the Bible. And all the amendments come out if you're a subscriber to it, and then the updates. Sad thing about it is Mass DOT can't make their mind up if they're gonna be metric or standard. Okay, they keep changing it, and they force us to change our plans, which sometimes costs $30,000 or $40,000 to change them.
Yeah.
And it's, right now, you can put it in either form. Chapter 90 is based on that, a lot of that.
On the Blue Book.
Chapter 90 money is allocated to all 365 towns in Massachusetts,
Okay.
based on population, road miles, and employment. And it's 50% road miles, 25% employment, 25% residents.
Okay.
And that's what the formula is. That formula is used, we've been fighting for years to get more and more money. The Mass Municipal Association is an agency that's very supportive of Chapter 90 and is a strong lobbyist for it. And we've only been getting $150 million for all the towns for the last 8 or 9 years, and some years no money because there's infighting in the House and Senate. It's an item that has to come out April 1st for construction season, but last year it came out July 1st, after the Hag. And it was, this particular year, it was supposed to be $300 million and get a boost to the stuff we've been missing, and the governor only gave us $200. He still owes us another $100 million for this year. And we use that money for, it has to be a strip of road greater than 500 feet, has to deal with pavement, and town-approved street, and it can be used for engineering. We're using some of that money right now on 2 major road projects to leverage, like East Street. We've probably spent about $150,000 Chapter 90 money, but we're levering close to $12 million project. And Glendale Road, we probably used about $60,000, we're leveraging about $2.5 million project, which is supposed to start next year, and East Street the following year. And those are some of the things you can use with Chapter 90. But Chapter 90, you spend your money first, which is the town's money. You get reimbursed as long as you put the reimbursement in a timely fashion, and you can only use it for certain items.
Is that
You can apply occasionally for equipment, but you have to get the district manager's approval.
Is that something that you're in competition with? And no, it's just
No.
there if you fill out the forms. that you need.
It's legislative, and each town, like I said, is based on the formula. The number of miles of road, like Southampton has 86 miles of road, has a 6,200 population, and I think the employment is somewhere around 1,600 people in town. But they're working out of their house, but it's all based on the census form and the tax papers on an annual basis. And that's how they develop the formula. It goes up and down.
Okay, and that's something you're supposed to be guaranteed, but like you said, it
It's
doesn't always
guaranteed.
happen.
But the governor has the final say on how much can be released.
Interesting. So how do you plan? You said you have to spend your money first, and then and then you hope for the reimbursement.
Well, no, we hope, the reimbursement's there.
Okay.
You can borrow for it, or your treasurer, you usually check with your treasurer and see, you're doing projects, you keep them informed. They might have some money they're not gonna use for a while, they use that. But the key is to go after reimbursement. As soon as your projects are done, the money comes in.
David, any follow-up?
It's the spear question.
It's worn out.
Huh?
It's worn out.
Well, I get asked the same question each candidate, so, but one of the
It's a
things.
dull spear now.
Huh?
It's a dull spear now.
It's a dull spear, yeah. When you're the highway super, you're the target for everybody's potholes, mailboxes, flipped, and all that kind of stuff.
I'm glad.
How do you feel about being in that kind of position? First of all, have you ever been in a position where you just had to take it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Especially with safety.
All right.
And, yeah, I mean, at OCS, they just hazy lift down there too, so, but, yeah, I could definitely get used to that.
Edie? Edie?
I'm all set, Michael.
Jackie?
No, I'm good.
Liz?
I'm good.
Committee? Public? Anybody, any questions? Hank?
Just to be consistent, I'll have to ask you, I was on the planning board here for 10 years, and to be consistent, I'll ask you the same question I asked the other candidates. The planning board relied upon the highway superintendent, Ed, all those years, to make sure that the subdivisions were done properly, as he has pointed out, but also to work with the developers and maybe get a little more out of them than they really had to provide with the subdivision regulations, and also on occasion tell them they did something wrong and they had to dig it up. Have you ever supervised or reacted with subcontractors in your job at O'Connell? How do you see yourself in that kind of situation?
I have been in that situation, and I've watched the supers I worked for. One in particular was very good at forming a relationship with the subcontractors, and give and take. If you can do him a favor, then you do it, because then if he owes you, then it's a little easier to pull that extra out of him and also be able to, oh, this isn't quite right, maybe we can do this.
Anything further? Anyone else? Tom?
Yeah, I just wondered, I mean, it's not a real big highway department, so you're gonna be pretty versatile. Do you have licenses to, say, for trucks or hydraulics or medical card or?
I have, I'm going tomorrow to renew my medical card, actually. I have a Class B CDL with air brakes and passenger endorsements. I do not have a hydraulics license, but I have no problem going to get one.
Anything else? Anyone else? Anyone? Anything else? All right.
Do you have any other questions for us?
I'm all set.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Fine. The senior citizens are going home, is that what it is? The senior citizens are going home?
Thing to say.
See if somebody would be
willing to
come to that meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock here,
Hank is looking for someone to come to the master plan implementation committee tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
I would say that if we have a week to go to.
So, I'll see what happens. If I get out in time, I'll try and make it. I was going to just bring the meter back there. I'm going to ask that we're missing a member. I'm going to ask to bring the meeting back to order. If everybody could be tolerant and patient, please. My first question would be, how does our committee wish to proceed with this matter? We've had the discussions or meetings with the three candidates. Do we wish to discuss them? Does the screening committee have anything they'd like to add?
I guess I would say that I know we have a tight schedule, but I think that this given the fact that we have the entire screening committee here and we've had the interviews, I think we need to discuss, and that may push things off a little bit, but I think it's worth the discussion. I think it's fair to the committee that they're able to voice their opinion about it before the board makes a decision. I also think we can revisit conversation within the board after, but I think it's fair that the committee that put so much work into it is able to let us know what they think.
I don't have a problem with that. Does anybody else? Would the committee like to comment? You're chairman of the committee.
Well, I'm happy to give my opinion one way or another, but I thought I might let everyone else speak first. No? If no one wants to speak first, I'm happy to tell you what I think. I think that all three people are very capable of doing the job. I have a clear choice if I was making the decision right now. I think that Henry is very capable. I think he has a lot to learn, but would do the job well. Might take him a little longer to learn it, but I have no doubt that he could do it. I think that Will could also do the job. I'm concerned that this is, he's just out of college. This is a really big stepping stone for him with really big shoes to fill. I think I'm not comfortable knowing that he has the knowledge of what actually the job entails. I'm not sure he's at that point. I don't think that Henry's at that point either, but I think he has a better capability of getting there than Will. If I had to hire someone today, I would say that my vote is for Randall. I think that he is invested in the town. I think that he, of all three, has the greatest perspective of what the job entails. I think he's very capable of learning the job and doing it well. I think he'll have some stumbling blocks. I think coming from within the department and leading people that you work with on a regular basis is going to be a big roadblock, but I think he's capable of doing it.
Okay. Does anybody else on the screening committee want to express an opinion? Well, we'll start down the other end if you want to.
Hi. William sounds like a smart young man. I think he's going to do well in life. But I get a sense from him, although he's made some great accomplishments in his life, that some of his choices were not followed through. So maybe he's still sort of trying to figure out what he's going to do. I think he's going to do very well. I think he's going to be a great engineer. He's going to have a great career. Henry I liked as well. He does have, of all three candidates, he probably has the most real supervision experience than all of them, and he seems most comfortable in this kind of setting, so sort of answering questions on his feet and comfortable with that. But like Liz said, I don't think he has a sort of understanding of what's going on inside the highway department as it is. And then Randall, I really appreciate Randall's enthusiasm for the town and his commitment to the town. I think he is going to have that hurdle. I was in the same position when I worked in a mailroom, and then all of a sudden I was like assistant manager in the mailroom, and I was not one of the guys anymore. I mean, I was tough at 22 or whatever it was. And so I think Randall's going to have that. He's no longer one of the buds. He's management, and there's a whole training or learning curve that goes with that. He's going to have to learn how to grow a thick skin and just sort of delegate and really sort of guide and instruct individuals who have many years of experience, senior than him. He's going to have lots of experience, Joe. And I think it's going to be hard for him, but I think he'll do okay. It's just going to be hard. So if I were to say, if I had any specific candidate, I would say I would go with Randall, and hopefully be able to put in support for him to make that transition to that position. I think Ed's shoes are mighty big, and it's going to be very hard to fill those shoes. And I think the town has to be sort of expecting that they're not gonna have Ed anymore, and not gonna have that wealth of knowledge that we had before, and it's gonna take some of the committees and stuff, sort of a learning curve for them to pick up some of that information. I don't think Ed's going anywhere except to babysit his grandkids, so he'll still be in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and within cell phone range. And I would hope that Mr. Carley would be available for any of his particular knowledge base that can be shared with different people in town, especially Randall. So, I mean, if we can keep Ed around a little bit to mentor Randall, I think it would be an appropriate choice.
Well, I really like William's education and knowledge and experience and leadership, but I don't see that he has any qualifications to actually run the highway department. And he seems like a solid, nice person. And Henry Seidel from Holyoke, and that name is very familiar to me, and that's a good family, and he's done a great job for Holyoke. I think he could do the job. I think he's capable. And but then there's Randall, and I know him, and I like the way he stressed the safety and how important it is to take care of the town. And he has the experience, and he's been working in the department. He's familiar with the roads and the equipment, and I think he would be ready tomorrow to do this.
Can I add something? I think that we're in a unique situation because the position that we're filling has so many roles in the town, and you're not going to find somebody around who can say, you know, check off all the boxes on all those requirements. This is a unique situation. And to have somebody who's at least familiar with that is really a positive for us.
Right, at the beginning.
I'll go last.
Going to go last? All right. I appreciate Henry's maturity, shall we say. Being close to that same mature state as he is. I think, you know, clearly he's got the water part down pat. And someday we're going to need that, although probably never. He would have a learning curve on the highway part, but I think for him it's not going to be a big hurdle. But I guess I would be in favor of Randall because he's in-house. He's shown an ability to function, and he has an understanding already, so he can hit the ground running. Going to make mistakes, there's no doubt about that. I'm not saying he's the perfect candidate, but taking everything in appreciation, I guess I'd go with Randall.
William, I think, is going to go someplace. I just don't think he'd be here more than 2 or 3 years. I think he's very capable, but I think he's pretty young, and he might be chewed up and spit out in the department. Butch, I think, is very capable.
Butch?
Well, I call him Butch. Henry Seidel.
Henry Seidel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Short hair.
He has been recruited by us in the past for water jobs, and I don't think we'll stop that process. I think he's a tremendous asset, but I don't think the town can wait 2 or 3 years to get to the point where they are comfortable with all operations. I think Butch, or Henry, is very capable of doing the job. Randall has been with me for 3 years. I've shown him a lot of stuff at the highway department, whether administrative grants and stuff like that, over the last 2 years, because he asked. He wanted to be involved. He wanted to know how I did things. He asked me hundreds and hundreds of questions about why I do this, why I do that. How come I'm going over here to do this project versus that project? How do I organize the streets? He's got a commitment that I like. I won't say it's mirrors mine, but he has a sense of responsibility to the town, a sense of responsibility to the department, and he knows what's involved. I mean, he's been around, and sees what it takes to do the job. And just to compliment what other people say, yes, he's gonna make mistakes. I made loads of mistakes. But if you look at it as not mistakes, but as a learning curve, I think it's good. I don't think he'll make the same mistake twice. I think he'll learn. He's got to transition to go from work and file, as a worker up to a supervisor. Hey, I had that same step when I came in here. I had to deal with people that didn't want to deal with me. They liked the guy that was here before. And it's all part of life. But I'm going with Randall.
All right, so should we take any comments from the public? George?
I sat through the three of them, and I came in here with a blank slate. And Mr. Kemp, as far as I'm concerned, gives me a good feeling. He's part of the town, he thinks about it, he lives here, a lot to offer as far as I'm concerned. And when you come into a job like this, no one's irreplaceable. They bring their own things with them, their own learning curve, and the things they picked up. And I think Mr. Kemp will do a good job for us.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Anyone else? All right, how does the board wish to proceed?
Do you want to take a vote to offer the position?
Yes.
All right, someone want to do the...
Your honor, is it yours?
I make a motion to offer Randall Kemp the position.
Subject to contract negotiation.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Notify the candidates?
I would be happy to. Can we take a 5-minute break?
We can take a...
2 minutes?
We can take a 5-minute break.
Thank
8
you
o'clock.
so much, very much. I appreciate it.
We'll be...
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, whatever you guys did. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Keep you on speaker.
All right, man.
I'm going to hire